Welcome back to the Spider Cave. So this weekend was the South East Invertebrate Show run by the fantastic Invicta Arachnid Club, and helping out as I was there, I took the opportunity to have a look around, and while I did say to myself I'm going to try to limit to the number of spiders I've already got, you can see already from the two dumps in front that I've completely failed and have decided to get two new spiders. So firstly, we're going to rehouse both of them. We're just going to cut them into some simple enclosures just to get them out of these tubs. So we start with a golden Trinidad olive, which you can see in there. It's a really nice species, supposed to be quite nice and quite docile, but a little bit fast and kind of a little bit of speed on it, so it's moving around quite fine. It's probably okay in that tub for a little bit longer, but I really want to get it out. It doesn't have a water dish in there, and it's not a spider I know a lot about, so whenever you've got kind of something new, I want to give it a little bit more substrate, something it might want to bury into, it might want to dig down. You can see from the symbol I've been carefully chosen this is a female, so I've got a really nice female which will kind of grow and is running around. So there's a little bit of space in there, but I think something a little bit bigger, give it a bit of room to kind of stretch around it and settle. And then the other one, this much larger one just over here, is a Seemani or a stripe knee, or the Costa Rica stripe knee. This is a spider I've wanted to get for actually for a few months now. So I had one of these before, and it matured into a male quite recently, and a few months back in November. And in the end, I actually ended up trading him. So I took him to the show they did down in Brighton, took the spider down, had to pack him up, which eventually did, but didn't go as well as I would hope, but it was all fine, and took him down and traded him for the T. Vargans I've now got. But it did when I had this gap in my collection. I was always a little sad that I didn't have one of these. They are a really fantastic looking spider. I love the stripe patterns on the legs. I think they look terrific. And this being a female as well means I can, fully put this into the collection. It'll be around for a while. This is an interesting species because it's often sold as a terrestrial species, and you'll see a lot of people keep it that way. At the moment, obviously, there isn't a lot of substrate there. This is the box you kind of buy them in. So if anyone's wondering, this is obviously not how they would be shipped to you. This is how you buy them at a trade show. So they're in this kind of clear sort of plastic container. There is a little bit of substrate. There's a little bit of gap. They don't really have a hide. Even you've got the stickers they could sit under, but they don't really have hides. They're sort of fine temporarily. They've got ventilation, so they're okay for a day or two, but obviously not much more than that. So these have been sitting here just for a day to settle, and then they're going to get into these proper enclosures. And you can see this isn't clearly big enough. There's no room to kind of stretch. It's sort of compressed in there. So I really want to get her out and get her into something basically just much bigger. I think that's what definitely deserves. Now I have also got some really nice glass enclosures that we're going to do some really nice 30 by 30 by 20s, and she will go into one of those quite soon. But for now, I just want to get her into something temporary, something that's just a bit more space, let her settle for a while, get used to an environment, get used to the fact there's food and everything's okay, and then maybe in a couple of months kind of move her into her, probably what we do is her final enclosure, but I need to give her a bit of time. But I don't know whether this spider will want to be, whether she'll want to kind of exhibit terrestrially, whether she kind of likes to burrow. My male did. My male kind of burrowed all the time, and the only time I really saw him was every now and then, occasionally when feeding. And when it matured, it was basically he just sort of roamed around then because he was sort of looking for a female. But other than that, he spent most of the time in his burrow. So I don't know what this spider's going to want to do. She might like to be out kind of on the side. She might like to burrow. So we'll make sure there's a little bit of depth there, a little bit just to see what kind of spider she is, and then that will help in the enclosure and how I set that up later and how I kind of organise it for her. So we're just going to get these two rehoused. We'll get them into little enclosures. I've got a cork bark all ready for now. We'll get them in and then just give them a little bit of a new space. So we'll just work on getting those things and getting our spiders into their new homes. Put the top on the water in case I need to move out the way. You never also know which way they're going to run. And there's possibly the most common issue. Sometimes they can bolt going into a new enclosure. It's an unfamiliar environment, especially as they've been recently packed up into one space. So hoping that they'll kind of come in and we can try and get them to go in this direction and if they can find down into this little burrow space, they'll sort of be okay. So what we're going to try and do, we're going to put the current enclosure in there so we can take the lid off. It's a spider that does like to web a little bit, so that's quite nice. So we'll put that in and see if we can get the spider to just walk down the way that we want. And if needs be, if it proves to be difficult or if it's having any kind of issues or isn't kind of sun, we can put the old enclosure in. We just put it in the corner, take the lid off, put our lid on here and let the spider wander in their own time. Eventually they will find their way out into the kind of new burrow, and then we can take the old one away. Okay, so I'm just going to see what we get from this girl here. Okay. So I'm going to put like that, if I move that just a little bit, so we'll see what she does. But you can possibly already see in the enclosure she's kind of darting around a little bit. But she has got a little bit of speed. So we're obviously trying to be conscious. We don't know what this spider is ever going to do. I don't think they're going to be defensive. It's a new world, so we're looking possibly for, you know, are they going to sort of kick hairs? But I think mostly what this spider is going to do is possibly bolt. So we're just going to see how that goes. We're going to watch it kind of very carefully, bit by bit. And I said, again, even if I just feel that the way this is set up is a little bit awkward for them, if they're just going to run a bit too much, we can put the lid on and just let the spider wander in on its own, which it can do in its own time. So again, we're always thinking about the spider. We try to make sure that the spider is okay, that there aren't any issues and any problems. So I'm just going to see what happens as we start to take our lid off and just see what we can do. Don't want to do. So as we're trying to take this up, you can just see little things that can come, I mean, anything. So you can see that the spider has webbed very slightly, and actually it's then webbed up to the lid. So as the lid is moving, it's also dragging up this centerpiece of the environment they're in. So that's causing more disturbance. That isn't very helpful to us. So we're just going to try and nudge it with a paintbrush a little bit as we take the lid up and just try to just get rid of that webbing a bit, try and break that off again, so we can take the lid up without any further disturbances. Obviously the spider knows what's going on, or it knows something is up, but we're just trying to be careful as we go. Okay. So what we want to try and do is get them onto substrate as soon as possible. Now, given they're on that side, I'm just going to move it slightly this way. Just going to see how she goes. I'm going to use tongs again. Just trying to make sure that if she does move, it's not going to run on to me, and that we can try and keep her in this. So we're going to tip this up a little bit and just see if we can coax her in. It's possible she'll run out the top. I'm hoping that's not the case. Try and put this kind of here, but again, we never know, so we'll just try and be cautious so we can block a path off and just set for her. Okay. So it's going to lift up and just see if we can get her to go in the way that we want. And we're going to tap on the back and try and encourage her in. So I kind of do it that way. Hopefully we can see. Now, where are we? Let's go this way. It probably isn't the easiest way to organise this. I'm doing this incredibly badly. Right, there she is. So let's see how we can do this. Okay, there she's in the bit that we want. obviously tucked in, so she's not desperate to go. I'm trying to be very careful with her. I obviously don't know enough myself about how she is, so we're trying to be very cautious. Just going to see if we can get her to come this way and try with the bristles rather than the wood to see if that makes a difference. And there we go. Can we go this way? Right, I think what we're going to do, we're going to try and move her down this way here. Just going to see, she is quite skittish and I just don't want her to run off. So, for insanity, I'm going to put the lid on this one, I'm going to close her in and give her plenty of time to wander herself. Probably could have done it a lot better, but it's maybe the way I've set the enclosure up. But this is what we're trying to do, especially again as a beginner. We're trying to make sure that each time we're being cautious, and rather than have that spider run out and run around and cause trouble anywhere or cause issues for us, we can put them in their own little space and let them wander. So with that one out of the way, we're now going to move on to our striped knee. Again, we'll see what they're like. And for, I guess, a lot of spiders, they do tend to settle. You can I find often the first time you put them in enclosure, if they've been sent to you, they're quite dazed, they've been clocked up for a while, but they've been moved around a little bit more support. So we'll get the other one in. Yeah, same kind of setup, just a bit of cork, cocoa fibre and cork bark hide, and then we'll see if we can get that one in. Hopefully that one will just wander in a little bit easier, but if not, we can do the same thing. We can just put the old container in the new, we can take the lid off, just put our new lid on top, and the spider will wander in on their own. So we don't have to force them, and that's obviously the most important thing. Okay, so second enclosure, again, this one's exactly the same. Just going to get all of this cocoa fibre in. Again, isn't loads, but this is quite a large spider. And again, I don't want to make this too big. I just want to give them a little bit of space to roam around. So this is probably fine. The spider is large. They are going to go set into a much nicer, larger enclosure. More. So nice big water dish over there, that's fine. Water in there. Fine. Again, soak a little bit into this substrate and that'll just soak down. Dry out. So loads of water. And then a nice big hide, actually got a nice decent piece of cork back here. So we're not going to do anything, I'm not going to do too much dipping down, I'm just going to put that in. And again, a little bit there, but actually the way that piece is set, that makes life nice and easy. Decent space for spider. Now if they want to borrow a bit, she can, but honestly it just gives a really decent place for her to hide. So here we go again. Same process, we're just going to see what we get. So of course, remember we are dealing with a large spider. So this is still regarded as a beginner spider. You can just see how compressed up she is. Now she knows obviously something's happening, so she's shrinking up a little bit. So again, we're trying to be very cautious around her. But as with anything, a beginner spider doesn't mean that they're not going to bite. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be defensive. It doesn't mean they're not going to be skittish. You know, you'll see descriptions saying a spider is docile, which means they're not going to, you know, be defensive to you, but a new spider can run or move very quickly or shift around it. You know, they're all capable of doing these things. So we are always cautious with our spiders. We're always careful of what it is they're doing, of what it is that is going on. Okay, so there is our spider. So again, we're just going to see if we can coax them down, see if we can get them in. Again, we don't know anything about them. We don't know what they're going to be like. And the other thing for spiders, which I find it's again, it's incredibly fascinating about them. But every spider is different. So you can have one spider of a particular species that's incredibly docile, incredibly calm. You can have one that is very, very defensive, and they can just be the same species. They can be beginner, or you'll often find on boards people talking about particular spiders. Some will say their old world is, incredibly calm, incredibly, docile, really lovely, while they might have a spider like a curly hair, or a, something in the Coleman, like a Mexican red knee, the Brachypelma Smithi or Mori, who are incredibly defensive and awkward. So again, every spider is different. And what I find, even more amazing, is they can change personality with each molt. Something that seems absolutely incredible and unreal, but they can do that. They can change with each molt. That is, incredibly fascinating in terms of how they are. But it does mean each molt, again, you have to just check how the spider is, how they're behaving. Are they becoming more defensive? Are they becoming bolder? So some of mine actually, and you would think that getting bigger would naturally make the spider kind of calmer, or more composed, but it can be very different. So my geniculata, that is a really lovely spider actually, and is really great and hasn't shown any of the awkwardness that some of them can. But when they molted and actually went up a size, they actually became a little bit more not defensive. None of the ones I've got are defensive. They're all very, very calm and really nice to kind of have and to own, but did become slightly more skittish, slightly, is far quicker to run into the burrow than it was before. It used to kind of stand out quite bold and just not care, and then one molt later and it likes to run into its burrow, and it's a bigger spider. It's in the same environment it was. Nothing else has changed. It is just the way that they are, and that's something we have to be very, very conscious of, and we're always very careful with them. So we're just going to see what this spider is like. Again, we're just going to see what happens. So we're always cautious. So they're facing this way. So I'm going to try and tap on the back leg. Now there's a few leaves in there, so I'm just going to try and tap around them. I'm not going to try and pull them out because I think that probably just disturb them a bit more. And we're looking for little things. Is she, is this spider going to move in? Is she going to kind of casually stroll in? Does she maybe turn and face the brush? Some of them will do that, and they'll try and turn and face it, and they'll see it as an aggressive thing. They'll want to face it again, so we have to kind of respond, treat carefully, and we'll just see. But again, even now, we'll just see what we do, just see if we can get this spider into this enclosure, nice and calm, nice and careful, and just see what we get from them. Annoyingly, I'm going to have to touch one of these leaves to get in, but we're just going to see what we get. So, see what she's like. Okay, just nudging really slowly, really calm, nothing else. We're trying to nudge on the back leg if we can. Again, just trying to get her to move forward out of this enclosure into her new one. There she goes. Look at that. That's a beautiful, beautiful spider. And that is absolutely perfect. She's gorgeous. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take this old kind of container away. She's obviously got her back legs up on it. She's finding her own way now. She's found a bit of a water source. She's kind of finding her own bit. So we're just going to take this now very, very carefully and just move it, just tip it a little bit so she can get her back legs out of there and into our new space. And that is, that's about as perfect as you could ask for a spider. Just look at that. She is absolutely gorgeous. She's just beautiful, incredibly calm, gorgeous. Took a little just touch, and think she's been in there for at least a day, probably two. She's sat in that tub at least, and has now been able to stretch those legs, and has just walked in so calmly. Got a really nice place she can hide. So we're going to leave her to it. She's got a lot of water, so actually to sit and have a drink, which I think, given the travel, is really good. So it was quite nice. They could feel water straight away. Really nice burrow. So again, that's our 2 spiders, and now up to 16, which means I've probably got to rethink some of the organisation here, and it also probably means already getting some new shoving in, but all planned for. So we're going to put the lid on this one, we're going to leave them again. We're not going to feed them straight away. I usually like to leave them for at least a couple of days, if not a week, before feeding them. I like to try and get an opportunity to settle, to kind of, you know, to calm down and just to learn that this space is okay. They've got access to water and access to a hide, and then by putting it on the side, I can leave the section alone and everything is fine. And then at a later point, I can you know, drop food in and tell them about it. But it just gives them a chance to calm down. You know, you don't want to keep, you know, taking the roof off or taking lids off every time you're working on them. You don't really want that to be the case. So we can get a lid on this girl and just let her settle into her new home. Yes, there you go, Ripley. Right, I'm not sure yet whether it's going to keep the same name. It might be Ripley, I might call her Ripley too. Haven't decided yet. But it's lovely to have a Seemani back in the spider cave. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all again soon.